Zhang Yi nodded. I'll go check on them. This time, the main purpose of his return was to hand over the compounds to Zhou Qi and Lu Karen for research. Yang Xia hurriedly said, "What do you want to eat tonight?" "I'll get ready." Zhang Yi casually replied, "Just prepare something. Make it a big meal." He couldn't stay for long, as he had to return to Blizzard City tomorrow. And for a long time to come, he would be busy with the eradication of the eclipse moon. "Okay." Yang Xia smiled and cheerfully went to prepare the food. Zhang Yi himself walked downstairs to find Zhou Qi and the others. When he arrived outside Zhou Qi's medical room, Zhang Yi heard a clattering sound of water. He was curious and wondered what Zhou Qi was doing. What was it? Why was there so much water? Could it be that she was practicing swimming? Zhang Yi walked over and knocked on the door. "Qi, are you there?" It seemed that Zhang Yi had startled her, as something broke inside. Worried, Zhang Yi reached out to push the door open. When the doors opened, he was met with a scene that shocked him. Yang Xinxin was tied firmly to a table, soaking wet, her cute little face as pale as a corpse. Zhang Yi was dumbfounded. He didn't understand what was going on. Zhou Qi stood nearby, her mouth covered in surprise, her eyes full of worry but also a hint of expectation. The 37th experiment, finally. Is it going to succeed? At this moment, Yang Xinxin's eyes suddenly rolled downwards from her face, which looked as if all life had been extinguished from it. She saw Zhang Yi, and suddenly there was light in her dim eyes. Before Zhang Yi knew what was going on, he suddenly saw an extremely strange sight. Behind Yang Xinxin, an angel with 6 white wings and a sacred bow and arrow slowly emerged. The holy light illuminated the entire room, so bright that it was blinding, and it was even a little hard to open one's eyes. Yang Xinxin was immersed in this light, and a morbid smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. "Brother, you've finally come back. Xinxin's experiment was successful, and now, I'm a mutant too." It was only after a long time that Zhang Yi finally understood what was going on. Although Yang Xinxin had been able to save her life with the help of Zhou Qi and successfully awaken her supernatural powers, the repeated abuse over the past few days had taken a toll on her mental and physical state. Soon, she fell into a deep sleep. At the moment, Yang Xinxin had obviously awakened her supernatural powers. This was good news. However, when Zhang Yi heard Zhou Qi describe the process of Yang Xinxin's awakening, he felt a little spooked and at the same time incredibly sad. Zhou Qi was loosening the restraints while talking to Zhang Yi and quietly recounted what had happened. "After our long research, we finally discovered that the awakening of supernatural powers is strongly related to one's obsession. When one awakens, the stronger one's obsession, the more powerful the power one gains after awakening is likely to be. Love, lust, hatred, jealousy, greed. All of these can become the power of awakening. That's why Xinxin initially rejected the Ice Soul. She hoped to obtain a more powerful and pure power. And the way to obtain this power is to constantly go through the experience of death, to squeeze one's potential and refine the thoughts in one's heart to the extreme." Zhang Yi looked at the girl lying quietly on the table, and his heart was filled with mixed emotions. He covered his head. "If I didn't know her so well, I would really say that she is a crazy girl. Who would use this method to awaken supernatural powers? Repeatedly jumping back and forth between life and death, 37 times, 37 experiences of death. Just thinking about it makes the hair on the back of your neck stand up. Zhang Yi has died once, and he knows exactly how difficult it is. But Yang Xinxin, she was willing to reincarnate in endless experiences of death in order to obtain powerful supernatural powers. But now, Zhang Yi had a glimmer of hope in his heart. What kind of supernatural power had Yang Xinxin awakened? After all, the way she had awakened was daunting just by looking at it. Zhang Yi couldn't help but think that Yang Xinxin was a top-level genius in her own right. If she was paired with powerful combat capabilities, wouldn't she be practically unbeatable? Zhang Yi was quite happy, but he also felt a little sorry for Yang Xinxin. As she slept peacefully, Zhang Yi was afraid of disturbing her, so he called Zhou Ker aside. Go with me to find Karen. There's something I need you two to help me research. Zhou Ker nodded, and the two of them went to Lu Karen's workshop. Lu Karen was overjoyed to see Zhang Yi back, and ran over to him. Big brother, you're back. I thought you were on the mission to surround and attack Eclipse Moon. Are you hurt? She thought about the shocking world-shaking incident and hurried over to check Zhang Yi's body to see if any parts were missing. I'm fine, I'm not in any danger. Zhang Yi smiled and replied, his heart warming at the thought that she was worried about him. In the shelter, the person he could relax and communicate with the most, apart from Flower, was Lu Karen. Because this girl's head is as simple as Flower's, there is no need to worry too much when communicating with her. Lu Karen patted her chest. After not seeing her for a while, the little girl seemed to have developed a bit more. That's great. But what's going on in Blizzard City these days? Has Eclipse Moon been wiped out? Zhang Yi smiled and said, we'll talk about that later. First, let me show you a few things. Zhang Yi said, and showed them the various types of medicine he had exchanged for. Lu Karen's supernatural ability could analyze the composition of the materials, while Zhou Ker, as a doctor, could analyze the efficacy and side effects of the medicine. Of course, Zhang Yi didn't expect them to be able to replicate the medicine. After all, creating such things was much more difficult than weapons. Bringing it back was merely out of habit. If Zhou Ker and Lu Karen could really do it, that would be perfect. This way, Zhang Yi would be able to solve a problem that he cared a lot about, helping Uncle Yu and Fatty Su to quickly increase their strength. It wasn't that Zhang Yi resented their lack of combat effectiveness. It was that Zhang Yi's own strength was improving too quickly. If it continued like this, the gap between him and the others would only grow wider. Zhou Ker took the medicine and asked curiously, what is this medicine? Zhang Yi smiled and said, it's very expensive medicine. I exchanged a huge amount of points from Blizzard City to get it. He ran his hand along his chin and said, they say it's a genetic medicine. It has different effects and can help people increase the strength of their supernatural abilities, and even increase the probability of their supernatural abilities awakening. Zhou Ker and Lu Karen's eyes lit up at this news. I can't believe. There's such a good thing. It's no wonder it's from the Jiangnan region, it's amazing. Zhou Ker slightly frowned, but the development of drugs is very complicated. Without professional equipment and materials, it would be difficult to replicate it. Lu Karen pursed her lips and said, my ability is to combine molecular components, and the need for equipment is not that high. However, even if the composition structure is known, the process of refining the drug is not clear. This is also difficult to do. Zhang Yi was prepared, so he was not disappointed. I might be embracing a big battle next, so you two help me see what specific effects it has as well as the side effects so that I can have a clear picture in my mind. As for whether it can be reproduced, you'll have to try more in the future. If you can do your best, but if you can't. Zhang Yi shrugged, then there's nothing you can do. Zhang Yi was never one to make excessive demands. Zhou Ker immediately said, I'll go to the infirmary later, and research this. Zhang Yi nodded, that's good, there's no rush on this matter. According to the information currently obtained in the Jiangnan region, the Eclipse Moon has suffered heavy losses and has disappeared without a trace. Most likely, it is recuperating in secret or recruiting helpers. In other words, Zhang Yi will have a period of peace. Thinking that Yang Xinxin had just awakened her supernatural powers and was still resting, Zhang Yi laughed and said, let's go eat first. When Xinxin wakes up, I'll tell you what's happened in the recent period of time. Zhou Ker put her arm around Zhang Yi's shoulder and said with a face full of dependence, great. Tonight, you have to stay up with me and tell me all about what's been going on lately. Tonight, Zhang Yi had to go to her room and have a good talk. Zhang Yi shrugged, as you wish. Zhou Ker stayed in the infirmary to look after Yang Xinxin. After awakening their supernatural abilities, they would all have a period of adjustment, and would need someone to look after them to prevent accidents. Zhang Yi, on the other hand, returned upstairs with Lu Karen to meet the others. Zhou Haimei and Yang Xia were preparing food for a sumptuous welcome dinner, which would take a long time. 2 hours later, Zhou Haimei and Yang Xia finally prepared a large table of food. And Yang Xinxin also woke up under the care of Zhou Care. They went to the first floor and, after seeing everyone, Yang Xinxin's face was full of composure. However, it was not difficult to tell from the corner of her mouth that she was filled with an unconcealable sense of pride. After all, she was an 18-year-old girl, and it was still difficult for her to keep her emotions and intelligence on the same level. But it was understandable. Yang Xinxin sat down next to Zhang Yi, put her arm around his, and looked up at him with a smile. "Brother, Xinxin can help you from now on." Zhang Yi was curious about Yang Xinxin's supernatural powers and reached out to scratch her rosy nose. "You've always been my best helper." Yang Xinxin giggled, "That's different." In the future, she wouldn't have to hide in the shelter all the time. Just like Liang Yu and Flower, she could now stand by Zhang Yi's side and fight alongside him. Zhang Yi suddenly became curious. In theory, Yang Xinxin's method of obtaining her supernatural powers was also very terrifying, having gone through the cycle of death a full 37 times. But in terms of the degree of tragedy, it was hard to say that it was any more terrible than Zhang Yi's. After all, Zhang Yi was killed by being cut up with blades, and then his resentment accumulated to the point where he awakened his supernatural powers. Although Yang Xinxin had experienced the feeling of death many times, she subconsciously understood that this was just an experiment, and that Zhou Qi would save her in a critical moment. He leaned into Yang Xinxin's ear, and the warm breath from her mouth blew against her crystal-clear earlobe. "What exactly is your supernatural power? Tell your brother." Yang Xinxin's neck turned red as she lowered her head like a little devil. "Brother, do you want to try?"